everyone. I'm Celia Becker, an executive in the Africa Regulatory and Business Intelligence Department at ENS Africa, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the third of our Investing in Africa webinar series. This will be one of many conversations featuring a multidisciplinary team of experts across multiple jurisdictions on the continent, where together we will discuss how to navigate the complexities of investing in Africa. Today's session is focused on the role of government institutions in Nigeria charged with improving the flow of foreign direct investment into Nigeria. It's a well-known fact that the major threat to FDI into developing economies in Africa is the relative difficulty of doing business, often experienced both internally and externally. Nigeria is Africa's largest economy, but has faced challenges that hinder the smooth flow of investments into the country, and accordingly, the government has taken some steps to improve the ease of doing business. We are privileged today to host Mrs. Luvina Kayode, Deputy Director and Head of Incentives Administration, Department of Investment Relations at the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, and Mr. Ayukunu Oyeniyi, Project Manager at the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, who will be in discussion with myself and Mr. Soji Ayokbada, a retired partner of the Nigerian law firm ALEX, and currently principal consultant at Harbushan. We will discuss the role of the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission, or NIPC, and the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, or PEBEC for short, both charged with improving the flow of FDI into Nigeria. Welcome to all of you, and we look forward to the discussion. To our attendees, please feel free to post any questions that you may have in the Q&A box, and we will address them afterwards. Luvina, if we can kick off with a question to you. It is our understanding that despite the fact that Nigeria had for a long time had the ministries, departments and agencies, or MDA, as public organizations used by the government to implement its policies, the NIPC was established in 1999 to encourage, promote and coordinate investment in Nigeria. Why was it necessary to set up the NIPC in spite of the existence of MDAs? Luvina?
Okay, thank you. I think I went off for a bit.
No worries, you're back. We can hear you. Thank you.
All right, yes. NIPC was established in 1999. And before then, the job of investment promotion and facilitation was done by the Ministry of Industry at that time. And when things that had to do with investment promotion came up, there was a committee, interministerial committee, that was set up to handle those things periodically. But of course, it was not effective. And so the government of the day thought it wise to start up an investment promotion agency to handle the mandate of investment promotion and facilitation. And so NIPC was established to handle promotion, coordination, and facilitation of the investment promotion in Nigeria.
Thank you. And what has been the scope of the work done by the NIPC since its establishment?
Okay, so NIPC was basically, or is basically, mandated to, first of all, promote investments into Nigeria, then do the facilitation. Of course, when investors have come into Nigeria or have made the decision to be in Nigeria, we handle facilitation of their businesses. We also do advocacy, and that's the point where there are problems that investors when investors have problems, NIPC is there to advocate on their behalf. So in doing this, we have different programs and activities that NIPC does to make sure that the investment is, the investor is happy in Nigeria and the investment thrives in Nigeria. And so that above all, on Nigeria's part, to make sure that we are able to draw from the value of that investment in Nigeria in terms of job creation, in terms of transfer of technology and all the like. So NIPC, especially in recent years, has some activities that we do. First of all, we had changed our strategy. Right now, we have the investment promotion strategy that is country-based, that is sector-based, and is also company-based. So you promote to a certain country. We did a deep dive and got 20 countries that Nigeria thought to have deep relationship with in terms of doing business and in terms of promoting investments into Nigeria. And then went deeper to get the sectors, and more often than not, we are interested in all sectors, but we will move in line with the sectors that the government see as priority or key to Nigeria. And then we also promote businesses through a company. So if we see that it is relevant for us to get, say, MTN to come into Nigeria, then we move and target MTN. Aside our strategy, we also have other activities like the newsletter that we have, so that we are able to send out information to investors, because we, of course, understand that information is key to guiding the investor to make an investment decision, or even to remain in Nigeria after they have made that investment decision. So the newsletter sends out a lot of information about what we are doing and what we can do for the investor. NIPC has the iGuide. The iGuide is also in line with giving information. It's an online portal that gives you information about doing business in Nigeria. I'm going to be fast here so that I mention as much as possible some of the activities and that NIPC carries out in doing its mandate. Another activity that NIPC is into, what we have done is come up with a compendium of investor incentives. This compendium gives you all the incentives that are available in Nigeria that are there for the investor to use. It's online, and it's also in print form, so investors can actually get such information. We also came up with the Book of States, and what the Book of State does is to provide information, the comparative advantages and competitive advantages of each of the states in Nigeria. So when you look at that book, it's like at a glance, which state should I go to in Nigeria as an investor to settle down with my business? NIPC, I think as we go ahead, I'm sure there are questions that will come up that will make me talk about some of the activities and initiatives that NIPC has come up with in making sure that our mandate is met. Thank you.
Thanks, Lavina. Yeah, it sounds like you're busy, obviously, there's a lot to be done. I know that the NIPC is often marketed as a one-stop shop for investors. Soji, you have years of experience in the Nigerian market, assisting not only local clients, but also foreign investors. In your view, has the NIPC delivered on its promise as a one-stop shop for investors?
Thank you, Celia. That's one zone of concern for many would-be investors. The promise of the OSIC, as it is called, the one-stop shop, was received with a lot of glee because it was going to take out investors from their misery. So essentially, instead of shopping with 6 MDAs, you could shop in theory with the NIPC. The timelines have not exactly been kept in terms of timelines, but quite sincerely, one can say that the NIPC has eased the entry issues to a reasonable degree. By and large, it is actually a facility that's probably unknown to some of those advising incoming investments. So to the extent that your advisor is not aware there's an OSIC, the other channels for entry still remain open. They're not blocked, they're not scrapped. So that bifurcation may in fact have taken some of the whip out of the NIPC strength. But truth be told, the NIPC has made a difference.
Excellent. Thanks, Sergio. I believe you have some questions for Ayo.
Yes.
And Lavina.
Yes, indeed. When the PEBEC, as we call it, the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Committee was set up, the council, it was an attempt for Nigeria to be more competitive in the investment environment. And there are marks that were awarded for this structure globally. And it is important to understand that these are not exactly being marked globally anymore, but the effects are being felt. Now, Ayo, what has the PEBEC experience been working alongside the NIPC and the other agencies in the course of discharging its objectives? Ayo.
Great question. Thank you very much, and such a great honor to be here with you today. Essentially, the PEBEC works with different ministries, departments, and agencies in a coordination role. So we coordinate. We don't directly supervise any of these agencies, but I'd say the council, as the supervising ministers, sit on the council. So in the case of NIPC, for instance, the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment is a member of the PEBEC and sits in the PEBEC, and different organs of government have their supervising ministers sitting on the council, so that we can make the coordination much more seamless. So that's one. And so that experience has been a very fulfilling one. One is that we admit that there are challenges in the business environment, and the creation of PEBEC is government's own strategy to sort of address those thorny issues. And over the last 7 years, we've made some decent progress, and working with MDAs to come up with a number of reforms. And as you have noted, internationally, some of those reforms have been validated and acclaimed. But beyond that, our citizens are also beginning to feel the impact in their day-to-day operations. And we cannot only wait, we can only hope, and as we even work further to improve the business environment, that these gains will further lead to improved business operations in Nigeria.
Thank you, Ayo. Lavina, I think it's sounding like roses now. How has the relationship with PEBEC been in relation to what you are supposed to be doing, ensuring the implementation of the government policy thrust on investment?
So luckily, we always say that the more we have people that are doing the job of investment promotion, the better for Nigeria. So the more the merrier. So working with PEBEC has been great, obviously, because PEBEC is, as far as I'm concerned, doing some of the things that NIPC should be doing. And it's a symbiotic relationship, because their gain is our gain, is Nigeria's gain. Beyond working with PEBEC, because PEBEC makes sure also that NIPC delivers on those things that they say they would. Like you talked about the one-stop shop earlier. PEBEC would say at the end of every month, what have you done? And at what time were you able to do it? Were you implementing those services at when due? So the work with PEBEC has been great. But NIPC on its part, as a coordinator of investment promotion in Nigeria, also work with the various MDAs, especially the ministries that have departments of investments, especially of recent, so that they understand we're all on the same page, promoting Nigeria the way we should. So as the apex agency of investment promotion, we have periodic meetings with them, even training, so that they understand what the investor needs, and also understand that these investors are not just coming in to take from Nigeria, but also give to Nigeria. And then we understand, especially from the aspect of enabling business environment, that we need to provide those services. If you look at agencies like customs, immigration, because they provide services that these investors require even before they come into Nigeria. And while in Nigeria, we make sure that we keep preaching that message of you need to do the work as it's meant to be.
Good. So looking at government policy thrust on what it would like to see in the economic sphere, the diversification of revenue away from the hydrocarbon industry to move to other areas of international trade, in things like technology, agriculture. How is that going?
It is going well, even from the last government, then down to the new administration that is working on making sure that the environment is conducive. They're looking at different sectors. And like I said earlier, NIPC works with our strategies, always in line with the sectors of priority of government. So if government is saying we're going into agriculture, we're going into manufacturing, we want to make sure that education is fantastic. NIPC works, strategizes in line with that. So our work plan, everything just goes in line with what government wants. And we do not disregard, like I said earlier too, other areas, other sectors. We also work with them, but all our priority will go into areas of priority of government to ensure that at the end of the day, we're all making sure that the bigger picture is met and seen.
Thank you.
So Saidi, if I can jump in here, in your experience, in which sectors have you seen significant interest and or investment in the recent past?
Well, you would certainly be looking in sectors like technology. There's been a fair measure of agricultural investment as well. Manufacturing has always been the laggard in development productivity-wise in Nigeria. Manufacturing is beginning to rear its head again, and this is largely attributable to inward investment, although local investments too have ramped up in many sectors of manufacturing. And this is all against the traditional dependence on oil and gas revenue. We're also seeing quite a bit of activity, although not in the current term, in telecoms. Telecoms has been a runaway success for Nigeria. The real estate industry is also quite prominent in the number of gainers in terms of inward as well as internal investments.
Thanks, Saidi. And are there restrictions on foreign ownership in certain of these sectors that you mentioned?
Well, that's an exam question, Celia. That the combination of the policies of government is to the total effect that the economy is free and open. But when you talk about sovereignty, governments still exercise a reign all over the world, of course, exercise a reign on certain strategic areas. And those would be the areas in which there are still some restrictions on the participation by foreigners. Or, of course, in your defense industries, you will not let go of very easily. Defense and security are very tightly controlled, and the permitting system is very rigorous. In things like natural resources, there are, in fact, moves to domicile a fair amount of the activity in country. So you can only go so far, especially when you look at the rules around ownership of assets and equipment and machinery working in those sectors. Now, you also have things like areas in which either because of international rules or in fact, continental rules, you have aggregations that are less than international. They're either continental or local. We have things like cabotage rules for carriage of goods by sea. We also have things like limitations on how far you can go in the telecom sector, insurance sector, favoring local insurance company to do any amount of business that is within their capability to do in terms of the financial implication of those. In the power sector, you can almost say that there's been a deliberate attempt to promote local investment over foreign investment, but that is certainly not a bar.
Okay, thanks, Soji. Yeah, it sounds quite complicated. Ayo, if I can ask you a question, I think Lavina has given us a nice overview of some of the initiatives. Would you mind describing some of the initiatives that PEBEC has done so far, in an attempt to improve the ease of doing business in Nigeria?
Thank you. It's best to start with the legal reforms because predominantly those are people on the call from the legal community. What we've tried to do is to create some form of predictable certainty in the business environment by coming up with laws that that support business. So in the last 6 to 7 years, we've been able to come up with 4 laws. One of those laws has to do with creating, bureau for credit reporting. So now we have credit bureaus operating in Nigeria. There's a legal framework for that. We also have in Nigeria now the collateral registry, allowing people with movable assets to pledge their assets as collaterals as opposed to landed property. And in recent times, the Companies Allied Matters Act 2020, which is Nigeria's company administration law. No reform had been done 3 decades prior to 2020. We're glad that we worked with stakeholders to come up with that law, and that law introduced some great amendments, such as electronic share transfer. We also have virtual meetings now in laws. Companies do not, for small businesses, they do not need company secretaries to incorporate business. You also don't need lawyers to register business, even though that's always very interesting when speaking to lawyers. And in 2023, we have the Business Facilitation Act passed. And what that law does is we worked with the legal community on this. 40 law firms across the country worked with us to identify what we call irritants in the legal environment as it relates to laws in Nigeria. And we scooped all those irritants and came up with amendments to 21 of those laws across different sectors. And that has brought Nigeria's legal instruments closer to international best practices. So that law, it's very, we think it's very significant. And for business travelers, if you want to come to Nigeria, the visa processing had been a challenge. And because of that, we introduced what we call visa on arrival. So citizens now, or businesses can register for business, for visas from the comfort of your own through immigration. And that has made it seamless for operators to come into Nigeria. Nigeria operates a federal system of government. So beyond working at the federal level, we've also supported 36 states of the federation, as NIPC also does, to improve ease of doing business across the federation. And that has already begun to yield interesting results. More states are implementing reforms. And only recently, working with the World Bank and Development and other partners, we have come up with an incentives for states to implement reforms across property registration, land registration, taxation, improvement in broadband infrastructure, because we know that it's there to businesses. On access to justice, more states. Today, we now have 13 state government that have introduced specialized commercial courts for speedy adjudication of cases. And the last update we have as many as 50% of cases tried at that courts judgment delivered within 60 days. So we are moving certainly with the interest of the business community in mind. And as I would say, the future can only be brighter. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ayo. That sounds very promising, all of that. So thank you for providing that overview. Lavina, a question to you. What has the NIPC done to drive foreign direct investment, especially in terms of collaboration with foreign investors, development partners, and international financial institutions to showcase Nigeria as an investor's destination of choice?
Yeah, so in terms of collaboration with all of these different partners, yes, we see them, we understand, and we see them as our partners. And so we are deliberate in our relationship with these financial institutions and the international partners. So NIPC, mostly the kind of relationship we have with them is for capacity building and then for the business environment. So in terms of facilitation and then in terms of ensuring that the business environment is conducive for investors. I can give examples like recently NIPC was with the WTO at the WTO at the what's the name of this international program? I don't remember quickly right now, but that event was to bring together different IPAs, investment promotion agencies, to share kind of a peer review to ensure that you're learning from each other. So you see what other countries are doing and then situate it in your own country and make sure you learn. So NIPC was there. In fact, I was there to share the experience with the One-Stop Investment Center. That's the one-stop shop that we have in Nigeria and how it is run and how far it has gone. And quite a number of other countries were able to learn from the Nigerian story. And whether they have used it now, I have not followed up. But those are some of the kinds of things that we do with some of these partners. Of course, for the international financing agencies, they provide finances for us to be able to implement some of our programs. Right now, we are working with UNDP to ensure that, like Ayo mentioned earlier, there's this program we call the Nigerian Investment Certification Program for states. And this is to get them to up their standards with regards to doing business, with regards to servicing investors. So the UNDP is working with NIPC to ensure that it gives this certification to the state to see that they are investor ready. So we're working currently for Ondo State and Yobe State. We have relationships with countries separately, like we have Friends of Investor for Development with Japan. We have that with France, we have that with Switzerland. And all we do is to ensure that not just their own investors, like if you say investors from France that are in Nigeria, how are we attending to them? You know, we have specific country-to-country relationship to ensure that their investors are being served well so that they are able to thrive.
Thank you. Thank you. Soji, a question from you.
To find out how Ayo and Pebek have been navigating the distinctions and the diversity between our regional economic community called the ECOWAS and their mandate. Ayo, I mean, where do you see yourselves in that sphere, knowing that you are a Nigerian entity with a specific Nigerian goal, but situated within a regional economic community to which you are not only a significant player, but also bound by rules?
Thank you very much. As you know, Nigeria is a critical, is a vital, critical member of the ECOWAS. And interestingly, currently, the Nigerian president also chairs that regional body. And Nigeria accounts for upwards of 60% of the bloc's GDP. So we certainly play a vital role in that space. From our own perspective, as a PEBEC, our work is through the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which has a trade department. The Foreign Affairs Ministry coordinates any of those engagements with regional bodies and indeed international organizations. But we certainly provide the support, provide necessary information to the Foreign Affairs Department to effectively engage those ideas. And our work with the customs is also critical in making sure that the dreams of the founding fathers of ECOWAS come to fruition, right? And making sure that laws, trade agreements are added to. As you know, the regional bloc is such that there's free movement of people and goods, and customs plays a vital role in that. We've had a few challenges where, in some cases, there were border closures between Nigeria and other and neighboring countries. PEBEC played a critical role in, supporting government institutions with necessary data towards resolution of that. And even just recently, Nigeria Customs Service is now looking at, at least signed an MOU with its counterparts in Benin, in such that Nigerian goods can come through Benin and that duties can be paid even at the port in Cotonou. So it's been an interesting way to partner with our regional bloc through the Foreign Affairs Ministry. Thank you.
Great.
I think while we're talking about the region, Soji, I've got a question for you. I think we've seen quite a lot of political instability in the region lately. I think if you think about Niger, Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso over the last 3 years, what investment-related challenges do you think these political developments, could pose for Nigeria?
Right, that's a ton and a half. I promise you that we don't have the numbers, but everybody knows that there is considerable cross-border trading amongst West African countries. That is not only because the peoples of West Africa actually are so tribally intermingled that people 1,000 miles away have cousins to whom they're related by blood. And so trade has always flowed from centuries back. So when there is strife on the other side of the border, that has a significant impact on cross-border trade. And that is not just the informal trade. It also affects trade that is being moved by haulage, maybe sparing the sea bulk. Now, what we're talking about here is change of governments, change of policymakers, change of actors on various levels of the administration, and also the change in the type of goods that can be traded. Now, if you ever found out that when the Nigeria Benin border was closed, it reverberated all the way to Mauritania. So really and truly, these things can be very profound because of the nature of trade. Oh, of course, we're also in a region. Inward investment really does not draw many boundary lines. It just doesn't operate along boundary lines. So when a part of your region is unsafe, surely investors take a second view before they will fly into even that portion that is safe. Now, we do know that all the various rights that are suspended, or is it abrogated when there's a change of government, especially from one form of government, i.e. a democracy, to something like military rule, the implications are such that there is a wait and see. And that wait and see can be as many as months, it can be as many as years. And that does not apply only to the country in which the problems temporarily exist. It will stretch across the border to their neighbors. Now, that goes to your attractiveness to investors. It goes to your attractiveness to lenders. And it also goes to your attractiveness to buyers of whatever goods and services are coming from your region or from your country, because they would not be assured of security of supply because of the various issues. One of the easiest ones to pinpoint was the cost of flying from London to Lagos when the Nigerian problem initially started. Airlines had to bypass a whole swath of West Africa to get their passengers to their destinations. That will be fare increases. That will be frequency decline. And things like that just come out of the woodwork. As we see around this place, when a small problem lies you down, 1,000 other big problems will come on top of it.
Yeah, I think with all these potential risks to foreign investors, you would wonder if there's not a move in focus to local investors. I believe you have a question for Lavina about that.
Well, Lavina seems to have forgotten that we also have investors who are local. And they may not require as many permits as inward investors. But Lavina, what have you done for local investors lately from the NIPC?
Mr. Soji, Lavina has not forgotten about local investors. Neither has NIPC forgotten about them, because we have deliberate activities that we handle to ensure that our local investors are also serviced. In fact, as you make sure that the business environment is conducive, you're doing that for every businessman, notwithstanding whether they are international or local. So we have the domestic direct investment initiative that NIPC has. We do advocacy. One activity we do under advocacy is the program that we call the National Council on Investment, and that event brings together all investors, whether local or international, together to hear what their problems are, and then we table these problems and even articulate policies that government can establish or bring up to ensure that those problems are solved. NIPC, through the instrumentality of the one-stop shop, also has what we call the OSIC Lab. What do we do at the OSIC Lab is an all-of-government platform that brings together an investor who has a specific problem or an industry problem together with the relevant government agencies, and then we meet and agree on how to sort out such problems that have been tabled. NIPC also works with SMED, and that's the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria, to bring together small businesses or SMEs. We do business linkages. So we work together with international investors, the MNS, and then we bring them together with, we link them together with the local businesses so that both businesses can thrive. NIPC also does the investment profiling, and this is an initiative that allows any local business in Nigeria to table online whatever kind of partnership it would like to have with an international business. So NIPC in various levels has been doing this, especially with the advent of COVID. We know that we need to take care of businesses that are already on ground or businesses that can come up within Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lavina. Are there any specific programs or strategies that PBEC has developed in this regard?
Thank you very much. I think one of the major things we're working on is to improve, the turnaround of doing business with government organizations. So we want to bring some more predictability in timelines for issuance of permits, issuance of licenses. It would be good for us to make a promise to investors that your license will be ready in 2 months and 3 weeks, and that approval, or in cases where there's rejection, that is communicated as a when due. Closely related to that is also the cost outlay for businesses. We want our investors to be certain of the cost they would be paying and setting it. So that is very clear, and that is anchored on the Business Facilitation Act that was passed by the legislature earlier this year. So that's a key part of our strategy going forward. The other part is also continue to collaborate, to listen to the private sector. We know AFCFTA is a big deal, and Nigeria wants to play an active role in that space. And we would be working with our stakeholders, the trade ministry, the private sector, the organized private sector, and to ensure that the pain points that they experience are addressed. And that brings us to improving port facilitation, trade facilitation at our various ports, making sure that the turnaround and clearance of goods at the port is competitive within the region. So that's central to our strategy going forward. And I should also say that government is in a way to underscore the priority government has assigned to this program. We have now even had to set it. Mr. Awogwede spoke about the wait and see. We are glad that in our own space, the new administration has now even retained the team that have been working on the Ease of Doing Business program, because one, it's a confidence building to communicate confidence in the team, and also to ensure that there's going to be continuity going forward. So that's our strategy going forward. Thank you very much.
Zayo, that all sounds very promising. I think one contentious issue in Nigeria that many of our clients are experiencing, Soji, and I presume the same for you, is the shortage of foreign currency. I think many clients often raise that as a concern. What has your recent experience been in that, Soji?
Recent experience, I don't know how to situate that. The 6-year experience ending a few months ago was that there were 4 ways of acquiring foreign exchange for repatriation in Nigeria. I don't want to enumerate them, but it's a split between something called the official and something called the autonomous. Now, that not only bifurcated the exchange rates, it led to a lot of arbitrage. And most structured and organized businesses did not find that the camel couldn't pass through that needle's eye. And there have been complaints. And in fact, there has been some people divesting for just that reason. As you can understand, when an investor invests, the next thing that he wants to do is repatriate his dividends or proceeds, or in fact, his capital. But when the window for exporting it is constrained, it becomes a very serious question mark on the viability of the economic environment in that destination. So Nigeria has been a victim of that because, again, for many years, our principal earner, the hydrocarbon industry, could not produce as much foreign exchange as we were required to service the needs of the economy. So there have been all sorts of schemes over the last 8 years to grapple with that, until the new government decided that it was not going to continue with a single exchange rate policy. It was going to see how to merge such that it would be a willing buyer, willing seller kind of market. Although, of course, there are misgivings about that in certain quarters because a fear of devaluation attends that. But I think it is going to be far less arduous to navigate that space with this new policy. It is still working itself out because many players in the economy have heaved a sigh of relief that they can at least formally and in a structured way approach the 2 windows to see how they can do their business. It is hoped that eventually the two windows will fuse and we will have a single exchange rate like most countries. But that again, the jury is out because the foreign exchange requirements of an economy like this that is still growing is enormous. Goods and services need to come in to supplement or to supply the development and production lines of the economy. So it's a chicken and egg situation, more or less. So foreign exchange is going to be central to how people look at the investment climate in Nigeria. But hopefully, if they don't have too many hoops to navigate, it will not be radically different from the other developing economy, which has foreign exchange constraints, either by regulation or by sheer supply and demand factors. When you look at it, the economy is looking like it is looking up. Again, happily, the price of the main earner is going back up again. So perhaps in the near term, we would see a swift change in the climate relevant to investors so that they can repatriate and import without fear. The case in point has been the international carriers, airlines, who have had hundreds of millions of dollars stranded within the economy, unable to expatriate those proceeds. As you very well know, that industry is a cash industry, and they need to service many interests in the value chain. So that may in fact solve, the new structure may in fact solve their problem, but again, it will have attendant knock-on effects on the price of goods and services, no doubt.
Thanks, Soji. Ayo, I hope I'm not putting you in the spot, but can you comment on whether we can expect to see any improvements regarding foreign exchange regulations and foreign currency in the near future?
Absolutely. I mean, the good thing is that Nigeria is moving towards economic orthodoxy now. And the market has responded positively to that. In the last 3 months, the capital market has grown in some quarters between 30 to 40% has happened. In that space. The reforms have been undertaken, bold reforms. So this current administration is not certainly shy of the reforms. The last, 3 months, we have removed unsustainable subsidy on petroleum products, which has accounted for a huge fraction of government spending, and so that's central, and it now means that there's more money in the hands of Nigerian citizens and Nigerian government to do the necessary investment in infrastructure, in developing human development programs that are critical to growth. So that's key. And Mr. Obere spoke about the foreign exchange, and specific to your question, there have been reforms in the Central Bank of Nigeria. A new team is on board. The new governor is someone known in industry as competent, and the mood for investors and businesses in Nigeria, it's positive since that announcement has been made. Certainly, demand and supply plays a great part, and just as Mr. Obode said, crude oil at upwards of $90 is certainly positive for Nigeria, and that means that there's more income coming into the government, the coffers, and also there's significant effort to arrest crude oil theft in the oil producing areas of Nigeria, so that we can meet our ECOWAS OPEC obligations. So that's central. So as the supply is improving, and that's central. And generally speaking, the mood around governance is that a new team is on board. Only a few days ago, our president spoke very, very glowingly and spoke for Africa. Nigeria's, pushing for investors. The other day at G20, we took our case to members of the G20, asking and telling Nigerians that the room, our country is ready and open for business. And the MDAs, the ministry departments and agencies are also in alignment. Of course, there's quite a lot of work to do, but with political will settled and firm, we can only expect that things will change. And PEBEC is here to address all of your concerns. If citizens, if for any reason you have complaints, our doors are open to provide the feedback, and you can be rest assured that working with our partners, we would move everything possible to make sure those problems are resolved for you. And hopefully beyond resolution, we will also make sure those issues don't even arise in the first instance. Thank you.
Thanks, Ayo. That's very, very positive and promising. Thanks for that. I think maybe just one final question that I would like to pose to all three of you, and that's regarding the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and its potential impact on not only the economy of Nigeria, but also, how do you see this assisting in driving foreign direct investment and the initiatives undertaken by each of these agencies? Lavina, can I start with you?
Yeah, thank you. So with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, let me say I see it as a plus for the whole of Africa, because it will engender healthy competition, and driving investments into Africa. For us in Nigeria and as NIPC, we want to bring in investments that are RIBS. We say RIBS, that's RIBS, responsible, inclusive, beneficial, and sustainable. So to do that, NIPC has to intensify on its activities, the activities we are already doing, to further position Nigeria to bring in these investments into Nigeria. We see Nigeria as a large domestic market, and this makes it an ideal gateway to Africa. And it is also an essential component of the African strategy. Even if I say so myself, you see, Nigeria doesn't want to become, in the face of this African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Nigeria doesn't want to become like a dumping ground, or as we would say, a consumer economy. We need to bring in those RIBS investments. So we will work on our comparative advantage, because they will be key, while making sure that we build things like our facilitation services, ensuring that they are there. Of course, government is already talking about diversifying the economy, and that is what NIPC is working with government to do. Provision of information, like I said earlier, we have just worked on our investment policy review to ensure that it is facilitation friendly, because the world is going towards investment facilitation rather than just promotion. So we will intensify on all of those activities to make sure that we draw in the right investment. Ayo mentioned our ports earlier, customs, all of these agencies of government, we need to work with them strategically to make sure that we make Nigeria that destination that investors will want to come to. Let me just stop here so that others can say what they have to say too. Thank you.
Thanks, Lavina. Ayo, over to you. I think, how does PEBEC view the free trade agreement?
EFCFTA is key to our work. It's one of the 7 areas we cover. We believe that we need to boost the competitiveness of the Nigerian economy. If competitiveness isn't there, if our businesses are not competitive, there's no way Nigeria will be able to take advantage of the AFCFTA. So it's central to our work that removing all the bureaucratic constraints to doing business, making sure that businesses can operate freely within the legal framework that is certain, that engenders growth. So that's key. And then also bring it, because also AFCFTA is not just about us exporting. We also want to make sure that we're making it easy for our businesses to come into the country. Those who want to invest in the country, making sure that the space is devoid of challenges, everyday challenges that they face. So with that in mind, our policies are tuned, working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, operators are tuned to making sure that Nigeria is a safe place to do business, and that competitiveness is key and that we make it essentially that once our businesses are competitive, we can fully take advantage of AFCFTA. Thank you.
Thanks, Ayo. Sergi, last but not least, what is your view on this, and have you had any practical experience with clients kind of wanting to make use of the agreement so far?
Oh, yeah, sure. If I was looking at Nigeria and I was advising Mr. Nigeria, I would advise Mr. Nigeria to look first at trade in services. This is a country that has abundant supply of trained and skilled young people. They're going abroad across the Atlantic and the Sahara Desert in droves because they're looking for opportunities, and they're landing things that are below their dignity when they get to those other shores. Meanwhile, the same sets of services are in very serious demand and shortage in many parts of Africa. I think that the government of Nigeria ought to take a very, very keen interest in the protocols on trading services. And I do not say this because I've had the privilege of advising the UNECA on trading services. I say it because I see it. I see it myself when I go around Africa, which I do quite a bit of, that there is a very vibrant labor market that can be very mobile if we can solve a few of the problems that are in the way. So free movement of persons, which ECOWAS has given us a training in and experience with in Nigeria. Then next, the various barriers that are set up by the various codes that we use and the various mutual recognition arrangements which we have to put in place so that we can move quickly on trading services and retain that value in Africa instead of exporting it and re-importing the services and goods in another form. So really and truly, I think that the AFCFTA is a golden opportunity to reap what Africa has sown in its populace, in its skill sets, in its education, in its complementary business skills. And it should not have to wait for trading goods to get up before it takes the lead.
Thanks, Sergi. Yeah, I think that's very good advice, and I think it makes perfect sense for Africa to move forward and internally as well. Yeah, I think that brings us to the end of our session. This remains for me to thank our panel members, Lavina, Ayo, Sergi. Thank you all for the very interesting discussion and for being willing to share your thoughts and ideas on this very interesting topic. Thank you, and to everyone attending, thank you so much for your attendance. I've noticed there was a question about whether this webinar will be made available as a recording, and yes, we're happy to do that. After the webinar, we'll send out an email that's explaining where to find that, so that will be made available. But yes, and then last but not least, we continue with our series on investing in Africa, and you should be receiving an invite to our next webinar session shortly. Please look out for that. But otherwise, have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.